which way that I should go. Sometimes I think that I just can't stand it. Feels like I jumped in from another planet. This world has so much madness, disguised in eyes of sadness. Truth is lost upon the masses. People wear sunglasses in the dark. Ice is running through their veins, but I ain't taking Novocaine for my heart. Why it gotta be like that? Why it gotta be like that? I just can't help but question why. Somebody tell me why it gotta be like that? Why it gotta be like that? Some dreams will live and some will die. So many live in mental poverty while they watch a bad reality. Their spirits go in blind, a vacant state of mind. It's time the people opened up their eyes. This revolution will be televised. I've got to find a way. I'm praying every day. Truth is lost upon the masses. People wear sunglasses in the dark. Ice is running through their veins, but I ain't taking Novocaine for my heart. Why it gotta be like that? Why it gotta be like that? I just can't help but question why. Somebody tell me why it gotta be like that? Why it gotta be like that? Some dreams will live, some will die. Somebody tell me why it gotta be like that? Why it gotta be like that?
Come into our house of hope and love, of peace and justice, of wholeness and healing. We welcome all who has come seeking a new path, and to those that have found this community as a home. The seekers of justice, spirituality, and community. Throop Unitarian Universalist Church, where we love the world from the heart of Pasadena. I'd like to thank all of us and all of you for being here today. Even though we're temporarily still streaming, we're going to be back in person, fingers crossed, next Sunday. Your support of this community is still so very important to us and allows us to continue to be together in this beloved community. So I ask, if you are so moved today, to continue sharing your generosity in support of this congregation. Donations can be made online or using text to give, which can be found in your order of worship or on the chat in this stream. If you're new to Throop, please sign our online guest book as well, linked to the order of service or in the worship. We love to get a chance to know you, and we know you are a light yet to be discovered. Our theme for worship today is embracing history. In celebration of Black History Month, and out of a need to remember that our histories, no matter your race, your country of origin, are intertwined. We'll be exploring Black history from early slavery to more recent past. And in researching our histories, a quote attributed to Winston Churchill came to mind. Quote, that those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I encourage everyone to be open to learning about the histories that may not be your own. And so we open ourselves to this sacred space and time together here in your own homes, here with us. We affirm that each of us is a light in the world, and we recognize the flame from our chalice reflects that light. perfect. Our time together in worship is intimately connected with our daily lives. As a symbol of that connection, we light our chalice with a flame from our shared candles of hope and witness. Our chalice reading today is from Reverend Sarah Aline Lawal in terms Out of Flames. Out of the flames of fear, we rise and encourage our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith. We hope to heal the fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames we rise. We light our second candle to honor the people and ancestors whose lands we now occupy. The land under and around Throop was once and is still the home of the Gabrielina Tongva Band of Mission Indians. May this knowledge and awareness lead us to seeking justice and equity for all. We light a third candle, symbolizing our watershed, the Arroyo Seco. May their waters continue to nourish life in our communities. We take a moment of silence, holding all of these in our hearts.
When all the peoples on the earth know deep inside their precious worth, when every single soul is free, we'll earn the name humanity. The choice to be the best we can begins the day we say I am. The unity for which we sigh will never come through hate or lie. When all the peoples of this earth know deep inside their precious worth, the unity for which we sigh will never come through hate nor lie. When all the peoples on this earth know deep inside their precious worth, when every single soul is free, we'll earn the name humanity.
And please join me, those at home, in saying promise to our planet. As members of the family of living beings on Earth, we are guided by the Unitarian Universalist principle of respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. With hearts filled with love for it, eyes nurtured by its beauty, and minds ruminating on ways to protect its sacred and scarce resources, we promise to nurture the well-being of all life and of the planet itself.
Good morning, friends. This morning, I'll be reading a piece by Audre Lorde, a American writer, feminist, womanist, librarian, civil rights activist. She's described herself as a Black lesbian mother, warrior, poet. Born in 1934, died 1992. Her piece today is the transformation of silence into language and action. I've come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood, that the speaking profits me beyond any other effect. I am standing here as a Black lesbian poet, and the meaning of that waits upon the fact that I am still alive, and might not have been. Less than 2 months ago, I was told by 2 doctors, one female and one male, that I would have to have breast surgery and that there was a 60 to 80% chance that the tumor was malignant. Between that telling and the actual surgery, there was a 3-week period of agony, of an involuntary reorganization of my entire life. The surgery was completed and the growth was benign. But within those 3 weeks, I was forced to look upon myself and my living with a harsh and urgent clarity that has still left me still shaken, but much stronger. This is a situation faced by many women, by some of you here today. Some of what I experienced during that time has helped me elucidate for me so much of what I feel concerning the transformation of silence into language and action. In becoming forcibly and essentially aware of my mortality and of what I wished and wanted from my life, however short it might be, priorities and omissions became strongly etched in a merciless light, and what I most regretted were my silences. Of what had I ever been afraid? To question or to speak as I believed could have meant pain or death. But we all hurt in so many different ways, all the time, and pain will either change or end. Death, on the other hand, is the final silence, and that might be coming quickly now without regard for whether I've ever spoken what needed to be said or had only betrayed myself into small silences while I planned someday to speak or waited for someone else's words. But I began to recognize a source of power within myself that comes from the knowledge that while it is most desirable not to be afraid, learning to put fear into a perspective gave me great strength. I was going to die, if not sooner than later. Whether or not I had ever spoken myself, my silences had not protected me. Your silence will not protect you. But for every real word spoken, for every attempt I had ever made to speak those truths from which I am still seeking, I had made contact with other women while we examined the words to fit a world in which we all believed, bringing our differences. And it was the concern and caring of all those women that gave me the strength and enabled me to scrutinize the essentials of my living. The women who sustained me through that period were Black and white, young and old, lesbian, bisexual, and heterosexual, and we all shared a war against the tyrannies of silence. They all gave me a strength and concern without which I could not have survived intact. With those weeks of acute fear came the knowledge. Within the war we are all waging with the forces of death, subtle and otherwise, conscious or not, I am not only a casualty, I am also a warrior. What are the words you do not have yet? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them? Still in silence. Perhaps for some of you here today, I am the face of one of your fears because I am a woman, because I am Black, because I am lesbian, because I am myself, a Black woman warrior poet doing my work. Come to ask you, are you doing yours?
I would love to share a piece from, quite honestly, one of my favorite composers, and quite possibly a composer you might not have heard of. I want to tell you just a little bit of her story. Can you imagine being so good as a musician, as a pianist, that your teachers send you off to Juilliard in New York City, the great Juilliard School of Music, and you are accepted, but you're not allowed to live on campus. Can you imagine being so good that somebody recommends you to go study under an amazing, amazing teacher who taught amazing American composers like Aaron Copland, and being told by the great Nadia Boulanger herself, I don't have anything to teach you. And not knowing if she said, I don't have anything to teach you because she's being genuine or because she won't teach you. Imagine being the first Black woman to write a symphonic piece to be debuted by a major American orchestra, and nobody knows your name less than 50 years later. That's the story of Margaret Bonds. She made incredible music against all odds because she had something weighing over her head. She had a few things weighing over her head. And we can't let her be forgotten. And we can't let all of her struggle go to waste. And I think it is a waste that we don't play her music more often, which is exactly why I'm playing it for you this morning. I hope you will enjoy Troubled Water by Margaret Bonds. If you recognize the tune, it was originally recorded, as we know of it, by the Tuskegee chorus. I hope you'll recognize the tune.
Thank you. That was amazing. When I first started thinking about sermon topics for February, I knew I had to include Black history. Not only is it Black History Month, but this is also an area of history that I have to acknowledge I am just now learning how much I don't know. But this is a really wide topic. And so I started reading. I started reading websites. I reviewed novels I've read before. I reviewed textbooks that I'd read on this area. And I determined pretty much what I wanted to talk about, and that is the untold or less frequently told stories of Black history that I was drawn to. Again, I realized just how ignorant I was to many aspects of Black history and experience, and that's just in our own country. And how time and time again, people of color have attempted to overcome the impact of racism and oppression only to continue to be subjugated by an unjust system of laws and actions. Well, where to start? So I think it would be safe to say that we probably all have heard about the Mayflower reaching the United States, what is now the United States, in 1620. But did you know that another ship reached these same shores a year earlier, in 1619? The name of that ship was the White Lion, and it contained the first documented enslaved peoples to reach our shores. In the book 400 Souls, A Community History of African America, the author describes the reason why this ship did not receive the same acclaim as the Mayflower, which of course contained that lengthy list of our country's founders. They're being celebrated as the beginning of American traditions. So again, the primary reason why this other ship is not as celebrated is that it only contained, quote, cargo. The cargo included a group of 20 to 30 Angolans. They were sold from the deck of the ship, the White Lion, by criminal English marauders in exchange for food and supplies. But while every American child learns about the Mayflower, very few American children know about the White Lion. That is until in 2019, there was a project launched by the New York Times on the 400th anniversary of the very beginning of American slavery. The story of the White Lion and other stories of slavery in America are examined and presented in an effort to center Black history in our nation's archives. Later, once this colony of new British North America had been established, the number of enslaved people had multiplied significantly in an effort to provide labor for this new colony. However, enslaved and indentured Africans were navigating their harsh reality and attempting to secure any sense of safety and freedom. The colonies were creating laws to protect their own pocketbooks and to continue the othering of the Africans and their descendants. There are so many sad stories and examples. One attempt to distance the enslaved people from their indigenous cultures was an act that was passed in Virginia's General Assembly that stated, and I quote, "Be it also enacted and confirmed that there be 4 pounds of tobacco and a bushel of corn paid to the ministers within several parishes of the colony for all tithable persons, that is to say, for all youth 16 years of age and upward, and for all Negro women of the age of 16 years. Now, at first, this would seem to state that Black women were to be considered persons as same as white males. Says it in that law. However, the reality is that Black females were so necessary to the financial stability of the society, their value was to be taxed. taxed. Of course, no person with an enslaved black woman would pay these taxes. So the women were forced to work that much harder to pay their own taxes. So the women were forced to produce value for these taxes and were severely punished if they didn't meet these goals, which in turn meant additional damage to their women's health, to prenatal care, to the amount of attention that they could give to their own children. This set a precedent that would not soon be ended. In fact, in America, many enslaved people struggled to keep their families intact and to protect their loved ones by attempting to find loopholes in these rules, in these laws, that would allow to find themselves or at least their children out of this slavery. While some succeeded, the success, of course, led to new laws and new legislation to be enacted to prevent others from following their example. And it wasn't just government legislation that worked to keep these people enslaved. Unfortunately, churches were also not only complicit, but active in setting up structures to keep black people enslaved. In 1649, there were cases of free people that were carrying and adopting children of slaves that had died. In one case, in New Amsterdam, that's the precursor to New York, Emmanuel Peterson and his wife, Dorothy Angola, raised a child that was the child of deceased friends that were slaves. When the child reached the age of 18, Peterson sought to gain a legal protection for him. In the claim, he stated that this child had been raised in a Christian household and that person had even been baptized. Their claim referenced the fact that Christians could not be enslaved, and that this was put into place to further justify the enslavement of Africans as they were heathens. But he had been baptized. He was a Christian. Though the petition was begrudgingly granted, this moved Christian churches to, by 1656, close this loophole by no longer baptizing black people, stating that, we quote, "We have refused to do so partly on the account of their lack of knowledge and faith, and partly because the worldly and perverse aims on the part of said Negroes, they wanted nothing else than to deliver their children bodily from slavery without striving for piety and Christian values." They simply wanted nothing more than to deliver their children from slavery. My wife and I drive across country on a fairly frequent basis. We go from California to North Carolina and Maryland, where the majority of our family still live. During these trips, we try to plan time to stop at national landmarks, museums, things like that. Our last trip, we stopped in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the city that had once been the home to the most powerful and affluent black community in the country. The Greenwood district of Tulsa, also known as Black Wall Street. Now, while we were aware of the significance of what happened at Black Wall Street, I was not prepared to learn the magnitude of the events that took place. To give you a summary, in 1921, a black man, Dick Rowland, was accused of sexually assaulting a white woman, Sarah Page. Rather than waiting for a trial, a mob attacked the courthouse while police offered no resistance. And actually were seen arresting black people and placing them in detention camps while not a single white person was arrested. In fact, the police were deputizing whites and arming them. Local white residents were given the authority to use planes to bomb the city, to burn homes and businesses. In the end, a community of 35 blocks was destroyed. It's estimated that as many as 300 people were killed and 10,000 left homeless. As many as 37 black businesses were completely destroyed. And while current day, walking down the sidewalk, there are plaques with the name of businesses. Most of them are on sidewalks, overgrown, under overpasses. They're there, but you have to look for them. There's a museum now that's being constructed to spotlight just how monumental the destruction and devastation was and the longer-term impact to the area. Most black businesses never recovered. There are new and historic black-owned businesses still in the area. And there is a moving mural that's been painted in recognition of the past. However, there is still a battle against the gentrification of the area, and that may have longer impact on how many minority-owned businesses may stay or be attracted to this area. In more recent times, civil rights movements were all likely to know the freedom fighter Rosa Parks, who in Alabama in 1955 was arrested when she refused to give up her seats to a white man. However, do you know about the 15-year-old student, Claudette Colvin, who was arrested 9 months earlier, prior to Mrs. Parks, when she was committed this act of defiance? NPR later actually interviewed her, and she said that as a student, quote, "My head was just too full of black history. I felt like Sojourner Truth was on one side of me, pushing me down, and Harriet Tubman was on the other side of me, pushing down. I couldn't get up." And if we look closer to home, here in Pasadena, there have been both events of oppression as well as some great events for celebration. I discovered something really interesting. In 1950, Pasadena residents used electric railways called red cars to travel around Los Angeles and nearby cities. All the while, there were very diverse populations living in central and northwest Pasadena. The Chamber of Commerce classified this area as, quote, blighted. Therefore, when a new freeway, the 210, was set for construction, white residents of southern Pasadena rallied and pointed to these blighted areas as to where the freeway should be built. Several articles I read on this basically stated the result of this vibrant African-American business district and communities were all displaced. According to the website www.anoisewithin.org, by the late 1960s, an estimated 299 families had been displaced by urban renewal projects. 91% of the people displaced were people of color. Now, despite this, Pasadena, again, has a great place of people of color in history. One of my favorite science fiction authors, affectionately referred to as the Grande Dame of science fiction, Octavia Butler, was born in Pasadena. She studied at the Pasadena Community College, Cal State Los Angeles, spent time at screenwriters and science fiction writers in the area. If you don't know her, she's best known for her challenge of the white-dominated field of science fiction, and writing was a success for her, writing and winning science fiction book awards because they featured strong black females as the central characters with plots that tackled issues of race and racism. If you don't know her, look her up. She's an amazing author. And Reverend Lewis Allen McGee was an assistant minister here at Throop. He was one of the first black Unitarian ministers and a graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School. He was an Army chaplain during World War I and was a significant force in the civil rights movement. But, so what does all this mean? What does this history tell us? I believe it tells us that if we have not lived this history, if we are not connected to it as a person of color, that we need to educate ourselves. We need to understand that the past affects the present and the future. Now, I know I am likely preaching to the choir here as Unitarian Universalists. We believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people. I also know I must keep learning and understanding the history that is not of my own racial or gender or ethnic identity. Only in this way can I better understand the struggles and work towards collective liberation and to be a source of support and light in what is sometimes otherwise dark times. I'm going to leave us in the words of Jabari Saeed Jones, a prayer. May we remember the wounds of the past that bleed into the present so that we may heal and grow in the future together, whole and wise. May we remember and be free at last. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Although our chalice is now extinguished, we carry its light within us. May we recognize the flames within each other and use them to illuminate our paths forward and to be a beacon of light for one another. Now, go in peace, go in love, and go in light.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our
I was like, just in